Welcome back to the Bolts podcast about technology, life, philosophy, and everything in between. It is Friday, June 14th, 2024. This is your host, Muskrat, along with co-host Mongoose.
And thank God for Friday, Muskrat.
Dove Stench will not be joining us tonight. Tonight we discuss Muskrat, me. I'm going to talk about my 5,000 plus mile road trip. Took me to the No Values Festival.
Yeah, you were out on assignment for the podcast.
Correct. It was the inaugural year of No Values. Hopefully it'll happen again. As well as Roswell in advance of the 77th anniversary of the crash incident of 1947.
Yeah, it's coming up. And, 7 has a very symbolic nature to it, right? So, what do you think? Maybe 77 years since Roswell? Maybe that's important?
Oh, that could be bad.
Or it could be good. That's a good number, isn't it?
It is.
In numerology,
isn't
true. 7 a good
Maybe
number?
Disclosure will finally happen. Let's talk about punk, travels, and UFOs. As always, read some headlines and listener emails. Grab a drink and let's drive. Email the show. It's packetsandbolts@gmail.com. packetsandbolts@gmail.com. All right. So
welcome back.
Yeah.
You must be tired.
I'm a little tired. Lots of hotels. We brought a tent, but we didn't use it. Just in case.
Road trips like that are paradoxical. You get back and you're refreshed because you've actually lived. Because, when you're working day to day, that's not much of a life. But you're also drained. That's a lot of...
Yeah, especially on long travels, long drives. Some of those western states, but the good thing about Utah and things like that is the scenery, the rocks. Now we're going to...
You get harassed by any Mormons out in Utah?
I don't even know if I found any Mormons. Let me think about that. There's a lot of Mormon radio stations. Well, religious radio stations. All right, let's... I'm actually going to have a drink right now. Let me see here. Ooh, yeah. We're going to move the drink up to the beginning because I got, from our travels, this wine. I've already poured it, so there won't be any sound effects. But let's see here. This is from Arena Blanca Winery. Alamogordo Red. Winemaker's Red Wine Blend. And this is from the produced and bottled by Pistachio Tree Ranch, Alamogordo, New Mexico. This is from a place called Pistachio Land, home of the world's largest pistachio. If you're in Alamogordo area, check it out. It is a trip.
Is there a warning on the label that wine may be mixed with nuts? Yeah.
Let's see. I don't see it. But you gotta always worry about that. So I eat pistachios all the time, so I'm gonna drink this. But I'm gonna make a little clink sound. So there we go.
Yeah, I got a little bit here too. Thank you for that, Muskrat.
I was letting it breathe, so I did have a sample of it, but this is fresh. Salute. It's not super dry, but it's not sweet at all.
Right. It's very light. Now I did commit sacrilege. I added a small ice cube.
You're forgiven because it was in the car, so it was not as proper temp.
But yeah, it's light. It's tanniny. What would you say? Hints of pistachios.
Do you almost? I don't think it's a blush, but it's kind of towards the blush. It's not a. I wouldn't say it's the strictest
like
red.
a rosé.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not the strictest red that I would think of. It's not like a Merlot. I don't know what to make of it. I like it.
Yeah, it's
easy drinking.
It's good.
It's easy drinking.
Yeah.
If you're in pistachio land,
it could be dangerous, actually.
Yes.
You could drink too much of this without a thought.
Well, I'll probably be drinking this bottle also. We'll see how that goes. All right. So we are going to do a few headlines. Hopefully not get too hung up like sometimes happens, but we got a fair number.
A lot's happened this last week, though, and
I
don't think we're queued up to discuss everything that's happened. But
correct.
From Putin and Russia to
Yeah, we'll give a brief overview of that in a little bit. No specific stories unless you've got some, Mongoose. But the one I want to cover first here is the greatest one, because Wisconsin's one of the few dark ages states that does not have medical or recreational marijuana. And according to Yahoo.com, Up in Smoke, workers removed dozens of apparent marijuana plants from Wisconsin Capitol Tulip Garden. So the people are fighting back, or maybe nature is. Maybe nature is telling us.
Yeah.
You know what I love is there's all these signs for the dispensaries in Michigan. That's just money going out the door, Wisconsin. You get that passed.
I think some of the signs I've seen in Wisconsin for Michigan, it's like they're trolling Wisconsin. Like, hey, your state's stupid. You haven't legalized, so come up here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, give us your tax money. All
and
right.
you'd think that law enforcement in Wisconsin would just kind of camp by the border and then stop people coming back.
They can't just stop everyone.
That's true.
All right, WSAW.com. Man gets boat painted on fence that city made him put up to hide the boat. Now, this picture is pretty amazing because when I saw it, I just loved it. So apparently the city has like an ordinance where you can't have a boat with like just hanging out on, even in your driveway. It has to be in a garage or have a fence around it. So he got a fence around it. He's got a front door and it's painted exactly like the boat. And it looks amazing. I love it. And so I think he thwarted the city.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's like a transparent fence.
Yeah.
Right. Parking the boat is probably difficult. I mean, maybe
to make
not.
it line up.
He's probably got marks like inside the
to
fence.
make it line up.
But yeah, the top of the boat doesn't really stick out too much. Just that, what do you call that thing on those big boats?
Yeah, it holds the canopy. Whatever that is, it's a frame for the canopy.
But I mean, he's even got the bushes on the side.
I know.
And the bricks that match the chimney in his house.
And the back fence. He's got the other side.
So that is an A++ trolling job.
Yes.
And kudos to that guy.
That guy rocks. All right. While we were away, the Vatican gave a press conference on apparitions and supernatural phenomena. Now, I looked up, I never watched it. I was going to, and then work got away from me or whatever I was doing at the time. And actually, it might not even been at like noon. It might have been like Italy time. I don't know. Anyways, so I looked up a quick brief recap, and basically the new rules are they're not going to just allow local bishops to make declarations on whether it's the Virgin Mary or anything like that. They have to consult the Vatican. So it sounds like they're trying to get a little bit more control from, people, different bishops just saying, yeah, this is legit, which, probably is a good thing. I don't know.
Well, I remember years ago on Art Bell when he was still alive, and he used to interview Father Malachi Martin, who passed away several years ago. But, he was, of course, I think we brought him up on the podcast before, but doing exorcisms high up in the Catholic Church, knew about the Vatican. Used to claim that there were satanic rituals going on in the deepest depths. I don't know if he was talking physically. I think it was more metaphorically, but of the Vatican. But he would tell Art Bell that in the end times, that there would be an increase in apparitions and that they would be demonic in nature, and that people should be aware of that. So that always comes to mind when this comes up. But Dub Stench brought this up, off to the side, not during the podcast, but he was supposed to be our correspondent out in the field researching this, and I'd say he's not here tonight. He's derelict in his duties. Yes, Shame on you, Dub Stench.
We'll have to get his recap when he's back next time. I was hoping to see really clear skies over the deserts, and there were several times that there were storms, so the sky was obscured when I was in like the really back country areas.
Well, but on the way out there, you must have had good weather, because I looked at the weather report.
Well, there were storms coming around, and then as night fell, the sky was obscured. So we didn't get hit by any really bad storms, but we were driving, like when I was in Utah, I was hoping like when we stopped. Well, actually I didn't stop in Utah. So our first day was to Colorado, and then Colorado to California. So there was a point where we were approaching for the night. I don't remember which location, and it might have been after the festival, but that would have been, did we go back through, or would it have been Arizona? Because on our way to New Mexico. So whatever, one of those, southwestern states. But there was always some sort of cloud or like a haze, which could have been chemtrails. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. But like, I never got the full clear sky. And of course, we were always in some sort of like kind of city, so you do have some light pollution, but it's still got to be better than around here, I would think. We weren't in like Phoenix, but we were in like smaller areas that did have some lighting. But I never got that really, really clear desert sky I was looking for.
Did you bring a telescope in
I
anticipation?
did not. We thought about it, but we already had a pretty
So you're just
full
hoping
car.
to get some nice clear nights out without the light pollution.
Yeah, stuff you can't really see around here. I mean, the northern woods of Wisconsin, you can get a pretty clear sky, but it's, the desert's got to be better.
Well, I think stargazing is a dying art because of all the chemtrails and shit in the atmosphere.
That could be. We should get an astronomer. So I used to do a lot more when I was younger, but we should find out if they're seeing more haze, because there's a lot of weird hazes now. Not normal like clouds, just haze.
Yeah, it's probably the aluminum shit that they spray into the atmosphere, and then they'll go and say it's global warming.
Right.
Right.
All right. Let's see here. So I don't remember if we covered it last time, but Ascension was under a massive attack, multiple weeks, and I just looked up an update, and it looks like this update is from June 13th, and it sounds like a day or so ago, or maybe earlier this week, they were able to restore data to get their systems going. But if you didn't know, at the time I copied this link, which is like a week or two ago, they had been down for 3 weeks, and no one knew how to do the paper. I've worked in a hospital system. They had paper. They had downtime forms and downtime procedures, and they practiced them. Not only did they have practice sessions, but when the IT team did major maintenances on their medical system, they would use that as a test for their downtime procedures. Now, I've heard other people say that in this day and age, it's just not practical to do paper forms. Well, here's the thing. It can be done, because we lasted for, how many years with manual processes before computers. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. But if you listen to some of these nurses talking, if I read some other stories, I don't have all the links. You can go find this. Nurses are talking about the chaos. They didn't know where the forms were. They were taking random pieces of paper and just writing things. So to me, this says the company did not care about actually practicing any of these processes.
Exactly. So, I mean, if you're looking for any evidence that this is a corporate hospital company, they say, oh my gosh, it's putting patients' lives in danger. That's a quote from some nurses during this incident. And if you take patients' lives that seriously, you should prepare for any eventuality. And your disaster recovery, your business continuity plan, if you're looking from a corporate perspective, should take into account worst-case scenarios.
Correct.
You should be prepared for ransomware attacks. And, of course, you should have redundancy. You should have backups. You should have everything that prepares you to recover quickly from a ransomware attack. But ultimately, when patients' lives are at risk, you should have the processes to use those paper forms.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how you could not do that. And other than the companies and the stakeholders at the top of that company saying that it's not cost effective for us to worry about that.
Yep. When I heard that they didn't know where the forms were and they were using random piece of paper, that told me everything I need to know. This is your typical corporate place trying to cut every cost. I looked into it more, and several years ago they laid off most of their IT staff and outsourced. And then I heard rumors. I have not been able to verify this, but if you have hard evidence, rightsshow@packsandbolts@gmail.com, that they had a layoff just before the incident as well. And then someone actually on Reddit was saying they're planning to lay off more at the end of June, even during this whole hack incident. So yeah, when giant corporations just keep conglomerating and adding to hospital systems and other things, there's nothing good that comes of it. They suppose they're going to have efficiencies. Well, here's the efficiency. They don't care two bits about the people. Their efficiency is taking as much money and shoving it in their pockets as they can. That's their efficiency.
Yeah, and I think the reality, and we see this in IT too, is when you get part of like bigger companies, like the larger the company is, it doesn't matter how many people say they're serious about processes. The processes are always non-existent or fucked up, or the communication is so poor between the different silos and departments is that the processes are broken. And what you end up with is people scrambling at the bottom in real time, being reactive, trying to create their own processes ad hoc and fix shit, when ultimately the accountability comes from the top and it's just not there.
Right. Yeah. So if anyone's done DR planning, like real DR planning, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah,
but
you got to commit to it.
Yeah, because you're trying to, if all your IT systems are down, right, what are you going to do? And the business continuity plan, the BCP, is supposed to be there. Now, what's your core business? In a hospital, it's taking care of patients. So doctors should be able to treat people without a computer telling them what to do. Now, allergies and stuff, that's a problem, right? But hopefully, barring that, I heard things like they were writing the prescriptions on a blank, random piece of paper, and then just sometimes they would walk to the pharmacy with them, but other times they just sent them on their way. So think about all of the ways you could get just drugs. Like, here, I was told I need this drug. But
yeah, you could forge prescriptions.
Anything. Yeah. This is a free for all.
And I mean, the doctor may not even remember if he wrote it or not.
They wouldn't even know. Yeah, that's the time to go to those hospitals for that.
Now, of course, disclaimer here at Packets and Bolts, we do not condone with forging prescriptions.
Yeah, that's a crime. Yeah. That's a crime. But the allergies, that was someone brought that up to me, and I'm like, sure. And the patient should know their allergies. And then the person said to me, well, nowadays no one even remembers it. Okay, if you don't remember your own allergies, I can't help you. If you remembered enough to put it in the system once, you should know that you're allergic to that. I don't know what to say.
Unless you get Alzheimer's.
Okay, fine. Look, you're looking at corner cases here. Yeah. So the point is, when it comes to most of these downtime procedures, it's usually about like checking people in, getting their insurance and contact information. Those things are forms that every ER, everything should have stacked. It should be right there. But whatever. Anyway, I digress. I've been involved in BCPs and DR from like I've been in the medical side too, but even the non-medical side, like you're trying to figure out how do you run your business with none of those systems. It is when you've got especially if you're doing this from scratch, it's the biggest pain. And if you're not committed to it, it won't get done.
Yeah. And I think this goes for more than just DR or business continuity plans, but whenever you're trying to institute a complicated process, you have to have good communication and you have to create feedback loops, which means that you have to circle back and validate these, the facets of these processes, the elements that build them over and over and over to make sure that people are aligned, because all it takes is one department or a few people that are part of that critical process to break it, so you have to continually revisit things, validate. As annoying as that might be, it's the only way it can be accomplished.
Yep. Yes, that is correct. And this article, the stack.technology, talks about, I'm trying to get the actual year. One of the U.S.'s largest hospital providers, Ascension, fired IT staff in a cost-cutting drive, and now it's sucking up a cyber attack. And that was from May 9th, but I have to just peruse it because the story I heard when they outsourced most of their IT was in 3 years ago or something like that. I don't know when this article is saying they cut a bunch of jobs, but so in March 2024, the company also said it was outsourcing all hospital roles. Now, this is not the IT, to private equity-backed SCP Health. Medical directors, doctors, and nurse practitioners previously employed by Ascension will have to reapply for their jobs with SCP Health, according to Crane's Chicago Business, which first reported the story earlier this year. So how is that even legal at a hospital to be like, hey, we're not going to actually employ any health professionals, we're gonna use a company?
No, but from an IT and a security perspective, a lot of people don't realize that that's actually increasing the attack surface of your company.
Oh, when you're outsourced?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
To third-party companies?
Explain. I don't know if everyone realizes this.
Well, I mean, ultimately, you have to build integrations. You're outsourcing not just the personnel to third-party companies, but now you're relying on those third-party companies to keep personnel records. Those people, there may be independent systems that are run by that third-party company, and now you've got additional staff of your company to audit those third-party companies.
Hopefully.
And a lot of the times that doesn't happen.
Correct.
So from a securities perspective, when we say attack surface, there's more opportunity to attack and exploit your company when you outsource people like that.
And this is where the article references that the incident comes 3 years after they fired hundreds of IT staff and outsourced the roles to India. On Reddit, after the decision, one purported former employee commented, "It needs to be publicly understood that trying to pull some lowest common denominator shit with your entire IT department is going to go up in flames. So if they really did the entire IT department, that is one of the boneheadedest moves ever. So if you and I have talked about this before, if you do outsourcing right, you have a key strong team that is onshore. And the reason you do that, it's not just about talent. Like people think, oh, there's talent all over the world. Okay, sure, but it's not about that. First of all, you have to try to guarantee you get that talent, because when you go to the outsourcing companies, you don't necessarily, get their top talent. But it's not that you can't find someone as talented somewhere else. It's who is going to be the owner. Who's going to live and breathe this stuff? Who's going to care when they're on vacation? Who's going to actually maintain consistency about the way things are done? And you want that strong team to be, it doesn't have to be, if you're an American company, it should be somewhere close in America. If you're a British company, it should be in Britain. But you need that strong team local. And then when you outsource, you have to make sure that they're shepherding that outsource company, because otherwise things are going to slip pretty fast. Yeah,
and it goes back to the feedback loops. But what I've noticed in my years, when you're dealing with not just outsourcers, but, IT personnel that, they may be in India, Brazil, the Philippines, different areas of the world, United Arab Emirates. Those are some of the big ones where you have outsourced personnel for IT companies and big companies. A lot of the time, they may be knowledgeable about the technical aspect, but they're shit communicators. And even if they understand English, well, it's not their first language, and so they don't understand it well. The words may have a different context or a connotation from what we use. It's very difficult to communicate. And not only that, but there's cultural differences that play into it too. For instance, and of course, if you're Filipino, feel free to write the show, but I've done projects where I've actually analyzed the cultural differences and how that helps or hinders the business. And that's a culture that's very family oriented. They're afraid to step on each other, so they're very quiet and they're very process driven. But they may not understand the process as well. You have to have SOPs written out, very detailed, and there's not a lot of freedom to interpret. So all these things play into this kind of gamut of things where you're going to have communication breakdowns, and that's going to affect and hinder your processes. So you have to not only have people onshore that are willing to be owners, if that's the closest personnel that's familiar with the process, but, they also have to be there to, help drive proper communication.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing now, more than what we've seen in our previous existences with offshoring, is I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mongoose, but I think the people at the top are caring less and less about actually even providing the key business functions. They don't care. I don't think they care.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had some I guess business training. It was more leadership training in college, but I haven't been through the management seminars, or I was a manager for a short time. You've been a manager longer, but these people higher ups that have been in managerial and leadership roles for a long time that are going to what are they teaching nowadays? Because you're right, it feels like they're out of touch, and it feels like when you get leadership involved, it makes things worse. Have you ever been we've all been on IT calls where it gets escalated, and all of a sudden you got business personnel jumping in and trying to figure out what's going on. They're asking the wrong questions. I remember a time that we had a major SD-WAN issue, where there was a certificate expiration and there was a major problem with the overlay. Well, everybody's scrambling on a weekend, and they get leadership involved. So you get the vendor engineer, because they're the only ones who, this is Cisco, okay? So cloud-hosted SD-WAN, and they're the ones with the keys to the controllers because they're Cisco Colo. So you get the tech engineer on, and he's like, well, I got to go in here. And then you get management people yelling at the engineer, and it's like, okay, we all want to get this problem solved, but leadership is yelling at the engineer, making him explain himself, and it's just going to take more time because he can't focus on the fucking issue.
Well, see, when you have a non-technical person that thinks that yelling actually solves the problem, that's the best part. I actually have probably told this story a million times. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but whatever. Podcasts are meant to be to repeat stories over and over. But one of my many stints in an IT role, I think I was an architect at a place, and I was on my way to work, And while on my way to work, the internet broke for the company. Now, there's a multi-carrier place. I did not know the internet had broke until I was in the coffee shop across the street from said building. I was almost at work. I was in line. My order had been made. I don't remember if I saw an email on my phone or if someone texted me, internet's down. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's pretty bad. And, it's been down probably for, an hour, and my coffee's about to get here. And, coffee is probably a productivity addition, right?
You gotta have that coffee.
So I'm waiting for my mocha. And I get called by the, I think at the time it was an interim CIO or something. And then he explains that the internet's down. Like, oh yeah, I just found out. I'm just across the street. I'm getting my coffee. I'll be right over. And he seemed quite upset that I got the coffee. So we hang up. I get my coffee. It was only like, a couple minutes after that call. I get into the office. Of course, I have to park. There's a parking ramp, all that stuff, right? I get in. I'm looking. And he comes over to ask me for an update. I'm like, well, I'm logging in. I'm looking at stuff. He looks at me, looks at my coffee. I'm like, yeah, I was getting my coffee.
This was first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah, it's first thing in the morning. He's like, I could tell he was like steaming that I ended up getting my coffee. I'm like, I was in line. The internet's not going to fix itself. So, of course, it took me about 5 minutes of looking at the routers to determine that it wasn't anything we could fix. I can't remember the problem anymore.
Was that? I think I remember you telling me it's
the
split
fiber.
The
fiber cut. Oh, that's a whole topic on itself. We should have a talk about that. So I think we have covered something about this. But because of our really bad internet design at the time, we were susceptible to what was called split brain, which is, for the non-technical people out there, when you, similar to how you have two hemispheres of the brain, if you cut the connections between the two, both sides go active. And when both sides go active on the internet, if you know anything about that, you can't have the same IP originating from two different places. So even though we had carrier diversity, we technically had fiber diversity between the two buildings that got cut. However,
but it wasn't very diverse.
It wasn't diversely ran. We'll get to that in a second. So it goes split brain. But here's the funniest part. I had just given a lecture. I don't like to use the term lecture, but I had a meeting like 2 or 3 weeks before talking about how we could have an outage due to split brain. And everyone said at the time, because I was arguing for a re-architecture of the internet design. Everyone said to me at the time, but we have diverse fibers, all this stuff, and I just don't see what you're talking about happening. And then they dug up a tree, and we had north-south fiber runs. But for some reason, actually, one of the first things I had Mongoose do when he started was audit our fiber runs.
Yep, and we fixed this shit.
We found out that even though we had north-south runs, not every purposed fiber was ran to both north and south.
It was fucking retarded, Muskrat, as you recall, because they had layer 2 running between these data centers.
Okay,
which were in
that's
close
a whole
proximity.
other.
So it's just
that's
fucking horrible.
That was a whole other problem that I was trying to get them to do in a re-architecture.
But see, that's the thing is like these business people, they're like, oh, we have diverse fiber runs. Like, we're fine. They don't understand that like you actually have to connect things over those fiber runs, and like they're not connected properly.
Yes. So they dug up a tree for some reason. They didn't call Digger's Hotline. Oh, wait, no, we found out post-mortem they actually did, but the guy that was so mad about everything hadn't registered back in the past when the fiber run was ran. He didn't register it with Digger's Hotline. So all the screaming and hollering the guy did, all the madness he did for me getting my coffee, and all the bitching he did about the people digging without calling it Digger's Hotline, they found out they called Digger's Hotline, and he never registered it.
Yeah, but wouldn't you have people come out and do locates? Like, actually run the locator and, like, mark the shit.
Not in this case, no. Whoever they contacted said, no, it's all clear. Good. Good to go.
Everybody, if you're going to dig into your backyard, by all means, call Digger's Hotline. But for fuck's sake, like, if you're digging around, like, in a corporate area, whoever's doing that digging,
these guys were tree people. They didn't care. Oh, didn't we find out that Time Warner actually tried to claim that was their fiber anyways? Which then opened up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah,
did you ever find out, was that theirs or not?
What ultimately happened with that is we were running... or that company was running their private dark fiber in the carrier's conduit. No shit. So
that's hilarious.
That's where the mix-up came in, because the carrier's like, that's our shit. Well, we just had our shit in there.
Okay, so now that all the new can of worms is, didn't Time Warner have that registered with? Who knows? The whole thing's a mess.
It's a fucking mess.
All right, so that's fun. And yes, as Mongoose said, it was a layer 2 extension and running ASA or PIX firewalls over the layer 2
Failover pairs,
which I always say no to failover pairs between physical locations. They're meant to be ran in the same building. Now, can you do a cluster? Maybe, but you'll have to convince me. Anyways, you know me, I'm a purist for layer 3. So if you're going to do layer 2, it should be on an overlay over a well-designed layer 3.
Or do VXLAN, that's the big thing these days.
But it's got to be over a very well-done layer 3 redundant
ideally ISIS.
Using IS, yeah.
Or
OS.
A lot of places are building this on, brownfields, so it's going to be on like BGP or something.
Well, you know what I say, with BGP, you should have a IGP underneath it. But anyways.
Well, yeah, otherwise you're pinning up some things with static routes, because you have to have a route in the table for the BGP to, how that works. So,
well, people have argued with me for hundreds of years that BGP can be fine by itself, and I'm always like, BGP is meant to work with IGP. It's just the way, it's the devil's in the details.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is like, you're not always going to have directly connected peers with BGP, and so if you don't, you have to have that route. And if you're doing a lot of that, you're not going to want to pin that up with static routes. It just gets fucking
And this
messy
is a
as fuck.
purely academic argument, some would say, but I would argue against that. It's not academic. The BGP doesn't do next hop resolution well. It's recursive, right? It doesn't know the whole topology. So it always is going to work better with an IGP. And it doesn't matter if everything's fully meshed. Get an IGP in there. Also, IGP detects failures better. Then they say, well, what about the NSF and all this stuff? And like, okay, like, put all the fancy stuff you want in there. BGP was not made to run by itself. I don't care. And I want to have you know that McLaughlin group show where the guy would be like, wrong.
Yeah.
I want to have that for network. So when people say, no, you can totally run BGP by yourself, wrong.
The Saturday Night Live with Dana Carey.
Yeah. That's what I want to do. I just want to be like, wrong. You need an IGP.
Muskrat, wrong.
You need an IGP. Get over it, Facebook. You need IGP. And don't run your data centers over the internet only. Jeez, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm making guesses. You know that show, the Facebook Down, got quite a stir with some people.
What, the podcast we had? The episode?
Because I think now we don't know the inner workings of Facebook. We're either saying that they're incompetent or malicious. One of the two. Could be both. I don't know. If you think I'm wrong, write the show packsandbolts@gmail.com. Packsandbolts@gmail.com. I will argue anyone about BGP topology.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's like Whitney Webb said, that is, what'd she call it? The information security industrial complex or something, where basically the idea is that, the nefarious elements of world governments are in cahoots with the major IT companies these days.
Yeah, they're suppressing like the pro-Palestinian stuff. They just had a new story on that. I didn't put it in this show, but basically, if you're trying to do any type of pro-Palestinian, you're being suppressed, and they're trying to elevate the pro-Israeli. It's pretty blatant, actually. All right. Well, speaking of hacking, I don't know if that's considered hacking, but lifehacker.com. 560 million Ticketmaster customers allegedly had their data stolen. And of course, Ticketmaster is the latest in a string of high-profile hacks. Hopefully they get broken up, but I'm not sure. There's a antitrust lawsuit against them. I'm not convinced any of these guys are going to get broken up. Google, Facebook.
No, they only break up companies that, they don't break up the companies that need to be broken up because they're in cahoots with those companies.
That's true. They're probably trying to push them to do more of their bidding, and then they won't break them up. All right. Newsweek.com. Aliens may already live on Earth. Harvard researchers say. Now, the only thing is this has not been peer-reviewed yet, but the research paper, yet to be peer-reviewed, suggests that life forms from other worlds could be living underground on Earth or within the moon, and that UFOs and other unidentified anomalous phenomena may be evidence of them getting around. The study suggests an unconventional explanation for UAP, with the authors of the paper hailing from Harvard University's Human Flourishing Program, which researches the factors that contribute to human well-being and flourishing, which is weird. The paper has been taken down from ResearchGate since Newsweek published this article, but is still accessible using the Internet Archive. So it's really weird that Newsweek took it down. I don't know what that's going on, but so the UAPs and other objects or phenomena that cannot be immediately identified or explained by known human-made or natural sources. The author points out that the A in UAP represents anomalous rather than aerial because some of these go underwater, so they don't want to just use the aerial term. They've been reported in various forms: spheres, discs, triangles, other shapes, size, small to large, exhibit flight patterns and maneuvers that defy conventional aerodynamics, such as suddenly changing direction, high speeds, and the ability to hover without parent propulsion systems. So I am curious to follow this because this article is from June 13th. So I am going to try to dig up this thing in other sources. But the Internet Archive has the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, a case for scientific openness to a concealed earthly explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomena. Now, I've also heard them called ultra-terrestrials, which means, beyond the normal terrestrial, right?
Yeah.
So I'll have to read this paper. And why it was taken down, from what is it called? The open research. What is it?
There's a lot of good research that just disappears.
ResearchGate took it down.
So maybe the Internet Archive's got something about it. Check there, but
yeah, ResearchGate took it down.
I mean, I always thought that the ocean, the deepest depths of the ocean, is a pretty prime place for alien life, I guess you could say. I mean, it's how much of the ocean have we explored as humans? I think it's alarming how little we know about it because, I mean, just the pressures are so extreme down there. But I know that have you seen those videos of divers that go to deep parts of the ocean, and then there's like pools of water in the deepest parts of the ocean because there's something different about the composition of that water where like they can go up to this pool of water and it's like there's a pond. Huh. Because like I don't know if the specific gravity or something.
Like SpongeBob
is different.
Down there.
Yeah. I mean, there's just some really weird shit down there, and I mean that's a perfect place for aliens to hide.
Oh. All right. Well, to go over our string of hacks for the last whatever, the last couple of days, actually, a critical Microsoft messaging queue bug remote code execution opens Microsoft Service Complete Takeover. So it's CV 2024-380. The only critical issue in Microsoft's June 2024 Patch Tuesday update, but many others require prompt attention as well. So this is a pretty bad one. And there's been a string of people keep sending me these remote code execution. This one's a low complexity. Easy to exploit if you've got the messaging queue running and you're exposed to it. And if you do a show and scan, they talk about how many systems have come up with it. Windows Server 2008 and above, along with Windows 10 and above. I don't know. It doesn't explicitly say 2011 or Windows 10, 11, but I'm assuming.
Yeah.
The thing is, I get these. What's funny is, whenever one of the big guys get these things, like Microsoft, Cisco, everyone's like, yeah, that's bad. But then, they go about their day and they fix it and, whatever. But then when something like the people that always send me Fortinet bugs, and they always are pointing, it's like, okay, listen, guys, no one's immune from these bugs. So why is it only a problem when Fortinet gets these bugs? Because this is the thing. The old saying is no one ever got fired for buying Cisco, right? And I hate that kind of mentality. They all have these problems. So you're not going to be proof against it. What's proof against it? Defense in depth. Do they want to do that? Depends on the company.
Yeah, and that always leads into my favorite thing to tell security people is when you talk about CVSS scores, you got your base and your temporal scores, right? The base is like the initial severity of like the the particular, what the term, would it be, exploit or vulnerability, but temporal is the adjustment to the base score based on the things that have transpired since initial announcement. So like, is it seen in the wild now, whereas originally it wasn't? But there's also an environmental CVSS score that is wide open for interpretation by the company. So it's there for you to justify to auditors. I guess that's one use case, but you take into consideration the different defense in depth, I guess you could say, type mechanisms, and that can alter and reduce or maybe even increase your CVSS score. So, you don't always have to jump on every single vulnerability if you've got compensating controls, but I've never seen an organization that is mature enough to properly take advantage of those environmental scores, or the environmental scores. Yeah,
well, and with this one, it is pretty bad. And you want to expedite if you can, but the thing is I always tell people, any of your public-facing servers, you have to expect that they get hacked. So then your thought process should be what can they do? What can they do when they get the front-end servers, right? Now, for internal vulnerabilities, this is a risk because an internal attacker, if they've got access to the server and it's running the messaging queue, they could take over the server, and it's a little bit more of a risk, right? Well, it's actually a lot more, depending on the server. And not many companies, depending who we're talking about, secure their internal the same way they secure the external, right? But we know that a lot of companies are pretty bad at their external side too. So if you're not isolating your web servers, right, web-facing servers need to be, assume they're going to get hacked, and they should not be able to get every single piece of valuable information because they do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies or people that, I don't know if you'd say not knowledgeable enough or just not thinking hard or is not close enough to the security side of it, think like, they got in there, but they can't do anything. Well, one of the first things you're going to do once you get persistence is privilege escalation. And so that's something that, you need to be cognizant of, and you need to take into consideration almost all the time, because, you may have a server that you think they can't do much, but if they can escalate their privileges, the next thing you know, they take over your domain or something like that.
Well, right. Yeah. And that's another thing. So, well, first of all, this one lets you get complete control of the system, but hopefully you're not running web-facing servers joined to your internal domain, because then they could easily try to get the keys of the kingdom.
Well, even certain types of domain trusts, and relationships like that. I mean,
you got to watch all that.
Yeah, those are all vectors for, even if it's not directly part of the internal domain, you got to watch out for those vectors.
Yeah. All right. So there were several of those. We could go for hours on just all the vulnerabilities, but the record.media cyber attack on telecom giant Frontier claimed by Ransom Hub. So if you weren't aware of that, this is from June 3rd. It was an April cyber attack on a large telecommunications company has been claimed by a ransomware group that is gaining steam as a cyber criminal operation. So that took place as usual. And maybe a good news story. Let's see here. Crooksandliars.com. FBI raids corporate landlord management company for price fixing. Now, they were using algorithmic adjustments and leaving apartments vacant to just keep raising the rates and trying to squeeze as much as possible. So they're basically getting a collusion antitrust investigation. So we'll see where that goes.
It's price fixing as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Where are people supposed to live?
I know. Well, that's why our homelessness is getting it more and more, and people that work but live in cars, etc. There was one video I saw. Did I send that link? We probably should have had that. She was living in a sign above some building, and she was working remotely. She had her laptop and stuff. So she might have been like an IT person. I don't know. I'm not sure. All right. I don't know if I'll talk about we'll save this one for last because it's about the Roswell incident. Here's one, New York Post, nypost.com. Vegan fake meats linked to heart disease, early death, according to study. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you have ultra-processed fake meat, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. You know, I come from a time when vegans used to actually eat like real food, and now they're all in on this toxic food. So be careful out there. You got to look at what they're putting in the food to make it look like and taste like meat. It's not good for you.
Well, and ever since lab-grown meat became a thing in the news, you know, and one of the biggest proponents of lab-grown meat is Bill Gates, who's also been on record for saying that we need to reduce the global population. So part of the cabal, I'm sure, like a lot of people view him as such, but look, I mean, ever since this stuff came out in the news, they've been talking about it's a cancer risk. It causes cancer in lab animals that have been eating this, that they feed this shit to. It's not good. And I mean, you know, what's the root cause of cancer, right? It's sugar and other chemicals. You know, so it's interesting. There's all sorts of videos like this, so take it for what it's worth. But I saw a good few testimonials for a guy on social media. Who's, what he's trying to convey is that not only do you have to, try to live healthy, and not only do you have to eliminate the sugar because sugar feeds cancer, but you have to, if you're battling cancer, you also have to starve the cancer by eliminating shampoos and dish soaps and pretty much any household chemicals you can think of.
Wow.
Because what he purports to say, and I don't have the name off the top of my head, but he's saying that when you put a load of dishes in the dishwasher, or even using some Dawn dish soap to do your dishes, like what they've been able to test in a lab is that ultimately it comes out and you have several layers of chemicals on those dishes, and then you're putting your food on those surfaces.
Really?
Like you are ingesting chemicals, and the shampoo's the same way. So, ultimately, if you want to prevent cancer or get rid of that, is like you need to start, one of the big things is, like making your own deodorant out of, this is not something he talks about, right? But we're all aware, like you can, the same thing with toothpaste. You can get rid of the fluoride, which is horrible for your gut microbiome. And if you're trying to, nitric oxide, I think, is so important for health. The fluoride in drinking water and toothpaste and mouthwash, it kills the gut biome, and you need the gut biome in order to, metabolize the vitamins and minerals that you get from food in order to be a healthy person, and
right.
as well as create that nitric oxide. So
yeah,
it's just gotta avoid the chemicals, man.
Sounds like we're gonna need a follow up on our earlier episodes.
Yeah.
All right, popularmechanics.com. Another feel-good story from Mongoose. Humans may be able to grow new teeth within 6 years. They're experimenting with something. It'll probably give you cancer, though. They actually found something that can bring teeth back in a different, I don't know what animal they tested it in. So there you go. There you go, Mongoose.
So coincidentally, by eating lab-grown meat, radioactive lab-grown meat. No, I'm just kidding. I was just at the dentist getting my tooth drilled out the other day, so this one appeals to me greatly.
All right, now, leduc.locals.com. Google Drive censors files of Pfizer whistleblower. So, once again, if you're listening to Muskrat here and you care about your data, don't use a hosted cloud solution that is not yours, okay? So this whistleblower had a private Google Drive that, is it he or she? I don't remember the person, but they put whistleblower documents they were going to, give away. And all of a sudden, Google magically takes it away. You know how scary that is? All the conspiracies that people have, which I already think like this, they're doing it. Are they doing it personally, or is it a computer doing it? The computer's doing it. They programmed the computer to do it. Just be aware they're looking for shit, and if it's corporate, anti-corporate, etc., they're going to take it.
Yeah, and those content filtering, I mean, they're ultimately very advanced content filtering systems, but they've had those for 15, 20 years going back.
Right. But the argument is, it's my private Google Drive. They're not going to be doing that. Oh, really?
Yeah, but again, Whitney Webb, you're dealing with the information technology or security industrial complex.
Exactly.
They're in cahoots.
Exactly. So for all the whistleblowers out there, I would refer you to, actually I should have prepared this for the show because I just thought about it now. WikiLeaks had a whole thing about how you securely transfer files to them or anyone. They actually have encrypted tools and stuff you can use to do this kind of stuff. So if you're, first of all, we could do a whole show on like journalists in countries where the government is hostile to journalism, and you know how people get their phone hacked and all that stuff. We could do a whole show on like if you're really in very, very severe areas, you do not use certain things because they're going to know about you immediately. They can hack your stuff. The companies that you think are neutral are in cahoots, like you said. You know, you need to take it to the next level of paranoia if you're going to do this stuff. And Pfizer's a big company. So if you're a Pfizer whistleblower, you better get your shit together and don't use Google Drive.
Yeah, well, what do you do, though? Like offline backups on a Western Digital, like, external device? Well, they'll know you're doing that, and they'll burn your house
Well, listen,
down.
they obviously didn't know. The company was not aware of whatever happened here, probably. But Google flagged it. Now, maybe they didn't know it was a whistleblower. Let's play the best case. Oh, it looks like you have some documents that belongs to a company. It's not yours. We're going to clean that up for you because we think you're doing something illegal. Let's pretend they're doing.
Was that their explanation here? I see
I think that
the
might.
thumbnail says Google's stated reasons were obviously false.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'd have to look, but
You know, a lot of this comes in. I see part of that is the message. Your file may violate Google Drive's
facilitate
terms.
harm or encourage illegal activity. Yeah, it's all horseshit.
So, like, how do they know your file violates the terms unless they're digging into your shit?
Of course they are.
So, yeah, not secure.
So listen, take those files that you were going to whistleblow, and you're protected under the Whistleblowers Act. So that's why Google's claim is bullshit. Yeah, I know, I know. And get them somewhere that's under your complete control. Now, is anything under your complete control? Maybe not, but it's definitely not Google Cloud and Google Drive. All right. The last one that pertains to the second half of the show, this happened, looks like in 2023. And it links to something I'll be talking about in the second half of the show. Metal fragments found at the 1947 crash site in Roswell were analyzed, and it was some sort of aluminum alloy. This is from, rdrnews.com. So Roswell Daily Record. Now, we'll get into more in the second half of the show, but I wanted to just let you know something was found last year. I was told when I was down there that something was found more recently, so I don't know if he was confusing this or if something was found more recently, but he said something is going to be coming out in a TV show, either the first episode or later in the season for this new show that's going to be on, I think, is it Netflix? I'll have to look into that. But anyways, this is from 2023, and this was found at the crash site. So they did a spectra analysis and all that stuff. So that's what we got. That is Friday, June 14th, 2024. Those are the headlines. Anything else, Mongoose, before we go to break?
No, I mean, that last one's an interesting story, and I think we alluded to, beyond that, earlier we alluded to Russia, and we don't have a story about that, but we do have to at least acknowledge that Russia, Putin specifically, has declared the United States an enemy.
And that was after?
Because Ukraine's firing the munitions that we sent them, that we told them not to shoot into Russia. Now they're attacking targets inside Russia.
Well, to be fair, Biden said now it's all right to go shoot things into Russia. Certain things. Only things that are being used to attack them, supposedly.
Oh, speaking of Biden, I don't want to get into a big Biden bashing session here, but on the anniversary of D-Day, June 6th, he was out in France. Did you see that?
I did not.
There was the controversy about whether he shit his pants. Did you see that?
I did not.
And if you look at the video, it looks like he shit his pants, and there were people behind them that made faces like, "Oh my God." And then shortly after, Joe Biden had to escort him away.
I did not see that.
And our troops were stuck with Macron because Biden had to be taken
The
away.
French. So I did not see that, but so that'll go right with Diaper Don, where he's supposed to have been incontinent since the 90s.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, did I ever tell you my theory on why Biden is seemingly so much more incoherent than he was in the election?
Because it's not really Biden.
I have a theory. No. Well, sometimes he is coherent.
He froze. So this wasn't during the June 6th. By the way, he froze, kind of like
a McConnell freeze.
Yeah. Oh, they were doing the Juneteenth celebration, and he's just standing there, and just frozen with this like shitty smile, just shitty grin on his face. Until
do you think they're all
this
robots?
Guy next to him hugged him.
Do you think they're all robots?
Well, that's what I suspect. I think they're down. Like there's an issue with the download.
They're all
serious.
They're Google Cloud powered.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my theory of why he seems to be getting so much worse. So my theory is, you might know once I tell you, you'll probably remember that I'm against this particular drug in most cases. So my theory is he was pretty old during the election, and they started giving him because they were worried about his health. Even though he was an active, he rides his bike and, he does way more than a lot of people his age do. They started giving him, I think, statins to keep his cholesterol low.
Yeah.
And what is my thing about statins and other people that I get information from? And I'm just making this stuff up. So statins reduce your cholesterol in the blood. And if anyone knows anything about cholesterol, it's actually an important thing. And your brain is made mostly of cholesterol. And one of the side effects of cholesterol is memory problems. And I am convinced that most of the dementia that's going around nowadays is from statins. You know that doctors will routinely, even if you don't have a cholesterol problem, will routinely put people of a certain age on statins. Unless you argue that, hey, I don't need it. They do it just because the science says it extends life by a couple of years. And they also probably get kickbacks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think they put him on heavy ones back then. They probably still got him on there. And I think he's just losing his marbles because his brain's not getting regenerated. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's interesting too when you talk about cholesterol. I mean, it's been demonized for so long, and I think it's fortunate that if you listen to some very, good, I guess you could say health expert. I wouldn't even call them health experts, but cutting edge, like people that are, we talk about nitric oxide, or we're talking about methylated folate, things like that. People that are really digging into the science behind it, and they're very vocal that you need cholesterol in your diet.
Yeah.
And they'll go as far as to say, in fact, I was just listening to a podcast the other day where this guy was talking about some of this stuff, and he's like, you need a good amount of cholesterol. Like you have to be getting that in your diet.
Yeah.
So, and of course there's the difference between the HDL and the LDL, of course, but we
Right.
used to say that eggs were so bad.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah.
Well, and of course, like there's different types of eggs. You don't want, like the caged eggs. Like ultimately, like the organic or the free range are the best, right? So I mean, that's where the health benefits are. But you really, if you're getting good eggs, you really can't have too many of them.
Yeah, there's a chemical in the whites that prevents some of the absorption. But also what people fail to realize about cholesterol in the bloodstream is if you're healthy, you'll have lower cholesterol in the bloodstream. High cholesterol in the bloodstream is an inflammation response. So reduce your inflammation. We covered that on Superfoods.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll need to take a break real quick. We'll be right back after this break.
God help us all.
It is June 14th, 2024. We'll be right back.
Hank Hurlson here, proprietor of Baked Beans and Books and Furries Wear Boots. Did you ever wonder how many bites it would take to get to the bottom of a giant vat of baked beans? Well, I tried it once, but all the beans kept collapsing in on the hole I was making. I ate the whole vat. Stop on down to Baked Beans and Books to get yourself a heaping handful of baked beans and peruse the selection of books. While you're at it, stop at Furries Wear Boots. 11111 State Street, Madison, Wisconsin. Baked Beans and Books. When books just aren't enough.
And we're back. Ooh. Little groove. June 14th, 2024. We're talking road trips. We're talking punk music. We're talking UFOs.
Aliens.
Packets and Bolts. Email the show, packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Follow us on Discord. Mastodon. OnlyFans.
Get more feet pics out there.
I did get feedback. We're going to get to listener emails in a second here. I did get feedback because we were talking about possibly doing live video as well. And we talked about animations. And the person said, don't do that. That'd be stupid. I don't know how else we'd do it. I don't know how else we'd do it. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if we're ready for video production. That's a whole other pain.
No, we need to have a studio for that.
Oh, jeez. Rather than the hole in the desert.
That's right.
The Wisconsin desert.
This bunker is not situated for live streaming.
Right.
Well, I mean, not live streaming, right? Would we live stream it?
You almost have to. If you're going to do that, why wouldn't you, I guess? But
yeah.
I don't know.
But it's so infrequent. I mean,
yeah, that's the problem.
We're so fucking busy with these corporate IT jobs, man. You know, the good live stream podcasts are like weekly or
regularly,
more frequent.
Yeah. Hey, if we wanted to have a show where I tell people they're wrong about how they set up BGP, I could do that weekly. We could just have random callers just tell me how they're setting up BGP, and I'll just be like, wrong.
Well, I mean, it could be a daily podcast about how retarded IT management is, because that's a daily occurrence, and we should have a thing for that. We have an archive of bad IT management. We could probably pull from that, like every episode. We should do a segment, bad IT management example. Yeah, it's also a good book idea.
Oh yes. But you know what? What's funny is it wouldn't matter. The people that would like it would be the engineers. Management would probably never touch it, and nothing would change.
Yeah, they'd find a way to discredit it, and then keep on being shitty managers.
All right. Now there's a couple of emails. Joe writes, "Are you going to do a follow-up on the superfood episodes? Been a while." And that probably, reading that email before the show probably tainted our discussion, because as soon as Mongoose started talking about some of the health stuff, I'm like, you know what? We had one follow-up to the superfood challenge, I believe. We probably should have another one. But that was back in the day when Mongoose was on a strict diet. I'm not sure he's on that diet anymore.
No, in fact, in our very first Superfoods episode, I was in some of the best shape of my life, and now I'm actually in probably the worst shape of my life. And, so if anybody's got any recommendations about how to get back on the train, but no, actually, it would be a good idea, I think, for us to maybe look at an episode about practical ways to be healthy every day, and not just specifically about foods to eat, right? But what things can you do to make a very dramatic impact to your health? And like I said, one of the things that I've been looking at is how can I practically create my own homemade toothpaste and get the fluoride out of my daily regimen? Because, again, the effect to the microbiome is disastrous. And, we get it in water too. But, the toothpaste and the mouthwash are I mean, look at it this way. People have said that a big part of rat poison, multiple chemicals, but fluoride's one of the main ingredients in rat poison.
They have toothpaste without fluoride?
They do, and that's good.
You have to find it.
But the fluoridated toothpaste, if you look at the fine print and the warnings, they say to call your poison control center if you eat too much toothpaste.
Eat a tube.
Because, the fluoride is toxic. And, so that's why they make kids' toothpaste. That's why you should be careful as a parent,
Yeah.
Giving fluoride to your kids if they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Kids are stupid. I mean, they really are. And we were all kids at one point. We were stupid too, right? But
hey, toothpaste tastes good. Don't eat it. All right. Hank writes, do you think we will get another large solar flare? The one a few weeks ago gave a great light show. Could we get one that knocks out the grid? Now, what's funny is when that big one came a couple weeks back, I looked up and I saw like a vortex that the Aurora Borealis was creating. And I hadn't seen something like that probably ever. Not the exact way that this was happening. So that was interesting. I believe the sunspot was pointing to us again last week. I haven't heard anything major happening. But the question is, if we got a Carrington event nowadays, would that knock out our grid? So I've seen people online argue that in 2006 or something, there was a large solar flare that knocked out power. And these people are arguing that they've secured the grid enough that it's not going to do anything. But remember, we don't know how powerful the Carrington event was. We have theories. But it set wires on fire that I don't know if our grid can handle that. I don't know. We don't have enough information.
Well, I just went to go, and while you were talking about that Muskrat, ask ChatGPT what the likelihood that the solar flare knocks out the U.S. energy grid is, and it appears ChatGPT is broken right now.
Maybe it's a solar flare.
Could be. No, interestingly, and we didn't bring this up in the news commentary, but there was a general AI outage that affected multiple platforms about a week ago. And it was interesting because when it happened, it was early in the morning. It was like a weekday. And social media was lit up by developers that were complaining that they couldn't do their job. No shit.
This is not good. This is not good.
I mean, and all right, ChatGPT is really good at, there's some things that it does that's awfully shitty, like fact checking. Like we asked a question earlier about, some Roswell facts just to play with it, and it was making assertions that couldn't be validated, and then saying that the evidence was anecdotal. Well, why do you bring that shit up? But one of the things that it does really well is write code and debug it and help developers.
Depending on the code.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're talking like the major programming languages, it does a pretty good job. And so I can see why a lot of people are using it. I mean, I've used it. I've written VB scripts with it, and they just work. And I'm not a programmer. But, apparently we're too reliant on it now to where everybody's we can't work.
That was a fast transition to incompetence.
Yeah.
So call me old-fashioned, but I actually believe in knowing how to do the thing that you're employed to do. So if I were to be a developer, I would actually want to know how to be a developer.
Yeah, how do you go to your boss and be like, sorry, boss, I can't get that done today because AI is down?
Well, you know the dirty little secret that most developers are copy-pasting from other people. It's called copy pasta, right?
Yeah. And what... How many, because even ChatGPT has a disclaimer, do not import proprietary or company secrets, and I'm pretty sure developers are fucking doing it.
I actually saw a story, I cut it from today's episode, but about shadow AI, where people are using it without any vetting from the IT departments or business in general, and who knows what's being dumped into there from the company. Oh, we're in such a bad space. Yeah, we're in bad space.
Strap in. It's going to get even crazier.
Rough. All right.
That's DevOps for you.
Well, if you want to write the show about how you don't know how to do any programming but have a job as a developer, email the show packetsandbolts@gmail.com, packetsandbolts@gmail.com. If you feel AI is your friend, write the show. If you feel AI is your enemy, write the show, packetsandbolts@gmail.com. All right. So we've got several things to talk about. I went on a road trip about 5,000 plus miles. I don't remember how many. I actually effed up the trip odometer thing. But I have a rough estimate looking at my main odometer because I remembered approximately what was when we started. But I accidentally...
Well, why don't you just go on Google Maps and calculate the mileage?
Don't even. Actually, I have a spreadsheet of our possible destinations. That's when I determined that trying to go to New Orleans along with everything else would have pretty much... It would have been a non-starter. To do everything else we did, Yeah, no. Going across the whole Texas.
Yeah, so why don't you just overview where did
Yes.
you drive to
So-
and from on what days?
Yes, let's get to that. But first, my big mistake on the trip meters, because my car has got the master odometer and the 2 trips, A and B, right?
Yeah.
Probably pretty common. And I use B for gas. So every time I fill up, I do, because I'm weird. I do a calculation of what my miles per gallon is. So I use that to track that. I erase it every fill up. Okay. Now my A I usually use for oil changes. However, I mean, I don't need to because the car tells
You're
me.
like, I'll use that for my trip. So you're using A.
And somehow, I don't know, I was flipping through things and somehow I erased A. So then I was just like, dang it. So I had to go back to
Damn it,
my
Muskrat, all
odometer.
you had to do was like set A to 0 before you left.
I erased it in the middle somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so shitty because all you have to do is like hold it a little too long and boom.
I thought I was on B. But the point is, looking at my master odometer, I have approximately 5,000 plus. I don't know what. So this all started because my girlfriend. So it was brought to my attention that No Values Festival was created, and my girlfriend showed me the lineup, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost like a once in a lifetime thing because I've never seen Iggy, and I never thought I would. Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
I never thought I would go to see him live. I don't even know. I don't look into where he plays. And all
And like
that
I was telling you earlier, that would have been the act that I would have really wanted to see.
Correct. So that, along with the Misfits and Social Distortion, and let's just read off some of these. The Adolescents, they're the amoeba from Tony Hawk. If anyone is not familiar with them all the way, that's the one where they had a big, pop culture thing. The Dillinger Escape Plan. I don't know. There's so many of these. The Aquabats, Black Flag, Bad Religion, which I have seen. Suicidal Tendencies, Viagra Boys. Honorable mentions here. The Untouchables. I've never heard of them, but we caught them randomly and they were amazing. They all wear suits. There's a bunch of them. Some play horns and they're just really awesome and entertaining. And then the other thing that caught my eye, in addition to Iggy Pop, was on the Jello. So there's a whole bunch of stages, but one of them is called Jello A Go-Go, and it's DJ sets. And there's all these DJs. Well, guess who the last DJ was? Jello Biafra. And if you know anything about me, I like Dead Kennedys. And so Jello is also he's very outspoken on the music industry and activism and all that stuff. So I was like, holy crap, could I actually see Jello Biafra? Because for those that don't know, Dead Kennedys supposedly came to Wisconsin
And started a riot.
and they didn't start the riot. The riot happened and they got banned. Now I never been able to confirm it, although someone told me, someone I know knows someone that says they were there at the concert and it was a riot. And they also said that yes, they got banned. But I don't know if that's hard evidence.
Well, I think there were at least cars overturned. They might have even got burned.
But that used to happen. That used to happen all the time back in the 80s and stuff. I don't know what year this happened, but this was in Oshkosh, right? And they supposedly
Oshkosh, Wisconsin,
the city council banned them. I almost wanted to scream out to him. My hope was I was going to actually meet him and interact with him, but he cut through the audience to do a sound check. He does his own sound check. Amazing. And I was within 3 feet, and I didn't want to be that guy that just like tapped him on the shoulder. Other people did, but I don't want to be like a total, prick.
You didn't grab him in the balls or anything?
No, I did not. But anyways, I wanted to almost scream out, did you get banned from it? I don't even know if they would know. Like, if the city council votes on your band being banned, would you know? Would you follow up?
Well, he probably would have been like, where? Like, which one? Which
Well,
time I got banned?
I would have.
He's probably been banned from more places than he can count.
Yeah, so I didn't do that, but it was very awesome. I was within spitting distance. He was awesome. He was playing 45s. Most of these DJs were playing 45s. The guy that came before him was Angelo Moore. He was awesome. This one song he played at the end before Jello took the stage, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, Let's Start a Fire, and it was like a kid's character on the record. Anyways, super amazing, and Jello would hold up the 45, showing it for everyone that doesn't know vinyl. 45s are the small ones that usually singles were released on. However, if you know about punk, a lot of songs in punk are short. So punk bands will usually release 45s and they have multiple tracks on one side, right? So you can get a whole punk album sometimes on a 45.
Yeah,
between
that's
two
the thing
sides.
is, 45s were like obsolete in the mainstream years ago, but in the punk scene, they're still very relevant.
Oh yeah. Go check out. First of all, if you don't have a record player, get a record player, and then second of all, pick up 45s at any punk festival or punk show, or just going to record stores and finding punk stuff. But just grab 45. If you don't know who they are, just pick them up. Just buy them and listen to them, because you'll be your horizons will be expanded.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the Pomona Fairplex, it's called. This was
Yes.
on Saturday, June 8th, and it looks like there were 3 main stages, like a side stage for smaller acts, and then a DJ stage.
Correct. Yes, and the DJ was underground, so it was actually nice to get out of the sun. Now, this was all brought to my attention. I thought this would be amazing, but I'm like, we can't do. In the last couple of years, we've driven to Jersey for what was it called? See Here Now. Then a year after that, we went to Kentucky for Louder Than Life. And I'm like, I don't know if we can do this. So then she gets it as a present. And then the debate was, do we fly or drive? Now, I hate flying. I do it when I need to, usually for work. But then I'm like, well, what else could we do if we drive there? So we decided to go on a massive road trip. Took a week and 2 days off. So that was what we did. Now, the first 2 days were just hardcore. Day 1 was Wisconsin to Denver, which I've done in my youth to pick up dogs for my cousin. We drove to Colorado to pick up dogs in Denver.
All right, so tell us about that day. So day 1.
Day 1, it's corner to corner Iowa, all along Nebraska.
All those flyover states. You just stop at the Field of Dreams in Iowa. You're just like straight through.
No. Those 2 days were, I don't call them flyover states, but the problem about Nebraska is it's just long the whole length. And towards the end of the day, they were spraying their freaking fields with whatever the chemical, and it was going all over the highway. So we drove through the chemical.
Damn. Did you shut the vents?
Yeah. Well,
I
had internal air, but how good does that work?
Yeah.
And that was one thing that was a problem. Iowa was Iowa. In Colorado, we get to Denver late on the first day. And we actually had a log, and I didn't do my first journal entry until Sunday or Monday.
Did you hit any dispensaries in Colorado?
Well, no, because on our agenda was Mexico. So we decided we were not going to do anything like that. So we go through, we stay in Denver, get up the next day. None of the hotels have beer. I walked to 3 different hotels, all in walking distances. No one had beer. And then they told me the gas station that's down the street, it doesn't have its liquor license yet. So I'm like, as a Wisconsinite, I'm just like, what? I drove all these hours. My body needs a beer. But
yeah,
no.
So these were like Holiday Inns type things. You didn't have a hotel bar?
No, none of them had it. Nothing. Not even in the commissary. No one was selling beer. And they all acted like I was kind of weird. But, of course, I'm Wisconsin.
Yeah, did you say that? Hey, look, motherfuckers.
No, so then the next day, Colorado to Pomona, or just outside Pomona, would have been faster than our first trip. However, a major road, I think it was 70, one of the tunnels was down for some accident.
So, like, this is a tunnel under the Rockies type thing.
Yeah, we had to take a bypass through 6, I believe. And that took so long.
You should have ditched the vehicle and then hiked over the Rockies.
Yeah. Yes, I wouldn't be here today. So we did that. Beautiful territory. I love Colorado. I stopped and got a breakfast burrito because back in the day when I got those boxers for my cousin in Colorado, I got up, I went to the gas station, and there was 2 choices for burritos. One was the standard breakfast burrito. One was something called like the breakfast burrito deluxe, and I decided to go for the deluxe. And it had beans in it, not refried beans. And I'm like, who puts weird-ass beans in a breakfast burrito? And it did not taste good. Now, maybe it was my young taste buds.
But what type of beans, though?
It was like someone put baked beans in. It wasn't baked beans.
Man.
It wasn't baked beans.
Was
but it
the secret flavor slab in the burrito?
It wasn't the saucy baked beans, but it didn't taste like refried or anything. And maybe it was my young taste buds, but I'm like, who does this? I never finished it. So just to say that I conquered the Colorado breakfast burrito, I grabbed one at a gas station and I ate it.
Was it big?
It was better. No, it wasn't.
You're a brave man for eating a gas station breakfast burrito.
I know. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It had bacon. So anyways, we go and we get delayed and we go and we get to California. We go through Nevada and all that stuff. We go through and there was a semi truck that was swerving so bad, I had to hold off passing several times. Other people passed, they slowed down, but then they passed. And then finally, I actually called the cops because it was so bad. I'm like, I don't know if this guy is like falling asleep.
So he had the how's my driving number on the back?
He did not. I just called the cops. I'm like, there's this, it had like golden on the truck. It was a semi. It had golden. So I don't know if it was like transporting some food or I don't know. But it was so bad. I'm like, usually when you're sleeping and you almost fall off the road and you wake up, you're good for a while, right? It kept going. So I'm like, is he drunk? Is someone trying to take over the car? Is he getting a blowjob? I don't know what's going on. Blowjobs shouldn't result in that either. But anyways, the point is...
He's a roadhead, yeah.
The point is, it was so bad I had to call the cops. And to this day, I started thinking back as I was driving. Did I tell them it was a semi? Because I said a truck, but I don't remember if I said a semi. But they said they were going to send the California Highway Patrol. Don't know. Never know. We'll never know. If you're in the California area and you know about this... Email showpacksandsandbolts@gmail.com.
I don't know. I just have this image of Reno 911 where you're sitting there making fun of you on the phone call.
Yes, probably with my Wisconsin accent.
Yeah.
They even said something, and I'm like, I'm from Wisconsin, but I can't remember what they asked me. At any rate,
did they ask you about cheese curds?
No,
because every time every time I've traveled to anything remotely southern in the United States, and you talk to people when they find out you're from Wisconsin. The first thing inevitably is always, did you bring cheese curds?
So that's funny because that means they know about cheese curds. Most people don't know what they are. Oh. All right. So we get there. We get to the hotel and we check in. No beer again. No one has beer. And I'm not going to go wander around Pomona. I don't know the area and whatever. Well, we were down the street from Shakey's, which I haven't seen for years. And I wanted to go there the next day, but we left too early. Anyways.
Scarf and Barf, yeah.
Yeah. So we go to the festival, and let me just tell you, the food. Ate two things. If you have a chance in California to get a hibachi burrito, I don't know if it'll be as good as this one, but it had noodles, the chicken, all the stuff, some spice, and it was one of the most amazing things. I was going to get a second one.
In a tortilla?
Yeah. Unless you want the bowl.
Corn or flour?
I believe it was a flour. It was a big one. And it was properly cooked. It wasn't a raw tortilla, which I hate when you get those. Yeah. It was properly grilled, and the noodles were like very well seasoned, peppery, etc. And I almost got two, but we ended up getting a ramen cup from a different place, so I didn't get the second one. But this was one of the best things I ever had, a hibachi burrito. And it was $24, but festival food's expensive and it's California. And one guy said...
was that at the festival, though?
Yes, it was.
Well, yeah, everything's expensive.
Well, yeah, it's always going to be expensive. But one guy said that he didn't get his allowance yet, so he passed on it. But I had it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy should have got it. So we watched the adolescents first. And then while we were walking away from the burrito, he's standing right there. And my girlfriend points him out.
Who, Jello?
No, the Adolescence guy. I don't know. I'm not that big of an Adolescence fan, so I don't actually know the guy's name. But the lead singer is sitting right there. Now, she wanted me to say, I'm like, I'm not going to, he's talking to other people that look like the people he knows. I'm not going to do anything. So we go around and we do some other stuff. We come back. We got some merch. I got a book from a thing called Toxic Shock Records, Assassin of Mediocrity, a story of love, loss, and loud music by Bill Sassenberger. Now, if you know him, he's pretty cool, but, well, I probably shouldn't tell the story, so I won't say the part. I bought the book. I haven't read it yet. We just got back. But there was a funny comment that was made, but I'll spare the comment. Anyways, great tent to hang out in. I come back around. I see the Adolescent singer. And I decided I'm just going to do a remote, like, wave nice set or whatever. I do that. I don't think he really heard what I said. And he just kind of looked at me confusingly, like, do I know you? My girlfriend just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, that looked like, I don't know what that was. I don't know if he was worried I was going to be engaging more or if he really thought that maybe I thought he knew me. I don't know. But it was really not so I just kept going.
That's like the time we were at that festival and Dub Stench went up and did that interlocking finger thing.
I'm so pissed about that because I was going to shake his hand. If he would have just waited for me to shake his hand, he could have gone and done that. Yeah, he got to do the weird finger thing. Yep.
Well,
where you spread your fingers.
Well, Dub Stench did that to a few people at this festival.
That was anti-flag. Well,
he went up to do it to the anti-flag guy, I think.
And the guy did it back. The anti-flag guy did.
But the face that Dubstein's got, because I saw the whole thing transpire, and the guy was like, "What the hell's your problem?" Like, I mean, probably the nicest thing, but it's probably worse. I don't know. The guy was
Anti-Flag was a great set too. That was a couple years ago. All right, so I get like a weird brushed off look by Adolescence guy. You should probably find out who that guy is. I'm sorry, I'm not like super into all of the punk bands. I'm sorry. But anyways, so then we go and visit some of the other shows I wanted to see. Now Black Flag, I had a question. Is Henry Rollins there? So I looked up, and I guess he's not with, because for anyone that knows Flag.
Didn't he pass away? Well, I mean.
Wait a minute. Did he? No way. Is he dead?
I don't know about Henry Rollins. Like, I know.
No way. He's not dead.
Unless I'm getting him mixed.
So for those that don't know, Black Flag was without Sans Henry in the beginning. Henry Rollins came later and kind of transformed them into a different little style, right? No, he's alive. Yeah, he's alive.
Who am I thinking of? Anyway.
But he is not with them at this time. So that was one of my things. I'm like, are we going to get to see Henry Rollins too? No, obviously he's not. So I think does he still have the Henry Rollins band, or is I'm not up to date on all this stuff, but.
Well, the Henry Rollins band was big in the late '90s. I know, early 2000s. I don't know if they're probably still.
I don't know what he's doing now. Let's see here. He's presently active, so let's see. Henry Rollins band, 1990. For the same topic, Rollins recently said, I don't know. It looks like 2016.
Who's
maybe?
the guy who's got his own comic book company? Is that Danzig?
Oh, jeez, does he? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Let's see.
Yeah. His company is called Verotic.
Oh, okay.
So it's Danzig he's the big comic fan. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So then we saw several. I mean, I didn't know all the bands that we saw, but I've seen Bad Religion at the Kentucky gig. We saw them, always good. And the thing about Bad Religion is they're not like any other punk band, right? Like, and punk, just so everyone's out there is on the same page as I am. I always say punk is not a genre. Punk is a state of mind. So you don't pay attention to what the music sounds like. It's what you're about, right? So we were in a punk band that most people would say is more like hard rock than punk, but it's not the genre, right? So the punk genre is usually like people think Green Day, people think, pop punk, but that's not what we're talking about here. When you go to like a massive collection of punk bands, the Clash, they're punk, and it doesn't matter what they sound like. It's about what they're about. That's what I say.
Well, I think music's different things to different people. I mean, to me, like punk sounds a certain way, and even with there's a broad spectrum. So, I mean, if music always sounded the same, it wouldn't be enjoyable.
True.
So every band's always trying to find, its own creative spin on it, and
right.
I think just the nature of bands in general, you get different musicians together, it's going to formulate something unique.
Yeah. No, I get you there. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't consider punk a genre at all. So any individual could be punk. And my thing about punk is just your anti-establishment, your counterculture. You're trying to fight for a better. Me personally, I would say that you're fighting for a better society.
And would you say that all these bands kind of had that?
Well,
aspect
I didn't catch them all, but yeah.
I mean, certainly Bad Religion.
Yeah, and Bad Religion is unique because the front man,
Greg Graffin,
is very interesting in how he presents himself, as you know. And he's not your typical what you'd think of as a punk guy, but he's as much as in command. And he tries to present and project himself. Is very effective, and I always love watching Bad Religion, so it was great.
Yeah, I love Greg Graffin. I've never, at Lower Than Life, we saw him briefly, but I love, Bad Religion was one of those bands where when I first got exposed to them, I didn't like them because his voice is unique.
It is.
When you don't listen to them enough, like you may my first impression is I hate this guy's voice, but the more I listened and the more I got into them, and then I just fell in love with it. And he's put out solo albums that are fantastic, and they're very folky, so they don't have, I mean, to the point that he's got songs that he's just playing piano on with his voice.
Wow.
But the substance of those piano songs is very punk.
Yeah.
There's that activism,
Yeah.
component to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Always great to see them live. If you haven't seen them live, check out a Bad Religion show. I haven't gotten to see No Effects yet, and they were not at this festival, so I wish I would have seen that. All right, so Sublime, I wanted to check out Sublime because the guy's son has been playing. I didn't know this, but been there for a while. So they've been playing with his son. I don't know his name, sorry. But
so they've been were they playing like 40 ounces to freedom?
So
Smoke Two Joints.
I didn't catch a lot of their show, but we were walking between a lot of these sets.
Bad Fish, great bass guitar team.
So he did good. He was like out there. He seemed to command the audience, and what a front man is. And he plays guitar and all that stuff. So I did not hear the main. What's the main one? There. I can play the guitar like
Santeria?
No. I can play the guitar like a motherfucking right.
What's the name of that song?
Where it's at, or what you got, or something. Whatever. I didn't hear that. Which I'm assuming they played. But at any rate, then Jesus Lizard, the Dead Milkman. I mean, there's like some good shit here.
Yeah, and I see, like, I mentioned this earlier before we got recording, but L7, I see they were on the docket, and like I said, that's the female punk band in the 90s, and I think they've probably done this more than once, but they got heckled, so the lead singer pulled out a bloody tampon and threw it into the crowd.
It's very punk. Yeah. It's very punk. And what do you expect if you're heckling at a punk show?
Yep.
And so I didn't get to see Viagra Boys. And I walked past Social Distortion as we left. We left early to beat traffic and because we were pretty much dead. But the show that I really came for, Iggy Pop. So Iggy Pop still comes out there. He charges the stage. He had a limp, so I'm guessing he's got, some, I don't know if it's an injury or maybe he's had a limp for a while. I don't know. I never thought I would ever go to a Iggy Pop show. So I was like, holy shit, we got to see him. He comes out there. He charges the stage. He does some intro songs and all that stuff.
When you say charge,
he came running out.
So that's interesting to me because, 30 years ago, that guy looked like his biological age was 85.
What?
I mean,
really?
Well, that guy...
He looked pretty young when I...
Well, Jesus, maybe it's not Iggy Pop. Maybe it's the Biden
No,
effect.
not today. Like in the 2010, he was looking like he was maybe 50. I don't know, in my mind.
Maybe
60 maybe.
Maybe it's like Johnny Winter, the blues musician, who is 60 years old. He looks like he was 90 and he could barely move. These guys have done so much heroin that they've destroyed their bodies.
He's been clean for years, though.
Yeah, and maybe he's reversed a lot of that.
Him and Alice Cooper were in the rehab at the time. Now, Alice Cooper took a right-wing religious turn. Iggy, as far as I know, it did not. I know Megadeth, what's his name?
Dave Mustaine.
He became a left-wing Christian, which, if anyone reads Jesus, usually you would think he's more left-wing than right. But anyways, for some reason, Alice Cooper took a right-wing religious turn, and Iggy is just Iggy. I don't know what he believes personally, but I know he's awesome. So he comes running out as much as he can run. He did not look as young as you might have thought, maybe what I thought 10, 20 years ago. But he was not letting anything slow him down. So he comes out there, and the first couple of songs he's getting, people are reacting to him and all that. But it was when he went into the passenger, holy crap, he took control. So what's funny is on my travels, I tried to find Coast to Coast, and I only was able to find it a couple times with AM. It was all really bad. And one of them was about vampire cult and about the difference between blood harvesting and energy vampires. And he talks about going to concerts and feeding off people at concerts because they're giving their energy up for free.
Who said this?
This is the leader of the vampire cult and this Coast to Coast AM show with George Noria. Okay.
Wow. So was this a recent episode or one from the archive?
It was one of his greatest hits, but it was from several years ago. It was semi-recent. Pre-pandemic, I think it was pre-pandemic. Might have been just as the pandemic started. But anyways, I started thinking, what if some of these rockers are actually energy vampires? because he seemed to gather. I mean, we've been in shows and we gain energy in a way when the crowd reacts to us. And when a crowd doesn't react, you feel exhausted because you send energy out to try to get the energy to bounce back to you.
You're feeding them.
And then you're trying to get that bouncing back to you. And if it doesn't bounce back, you kind of just get exhausted at the end of the night. So Iggy, by the time Passenger played, it was holy shit, man. And what's funny is his band, you can tell, I don't know how long he's been playing with them, but he's like, take it down. Now, sometimes they seem to be very responsive, but he's like, take it down. And then they kind of took it down. But he's like, take it more down. And then he's like, take it way down. And like he took 3 times repeating for them to get as low as he wanted. And he starts doing the Passenger parts and he's got his hand out and you can tell he's like controlling the vibe. And he's like a master. It was like insane. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy is like epic. And so he did that. And then at some point he starts doing barking. And then you know what came after? He starts like, he's on the ground and he starts barking. And then the dog.
Segue into I Want to Be Your Dog. Yeah,
yes.
Epic.
And then, of course, Iggy, if you know anything about Iggy people, he's not stuck to one genre. Some people credit him with being the first punk rocker. He, of course, decries that. He's like, no, don't call me that. But he's got the song Lust for Life, which is like 180 degrees from all of his early stuff, right? But he played that. And he still put the mic in his pants, like. But you know what he did before he did that? And I can't show it on here. I'm gonna have to pantomime it. But my girlfriend did not catch it because I was laughing my ass off when I saw it. It was one of his early songs, and as it's ending, he goes and then he was just, he did like the jack off sign, like he's shooting into the crowd. It was the most hilarious thing ever. But he's got his moves that he does. He just does them. I don't know.
That's like that. I'm thinking of that Ken Jeong from, was it The Hangover, where there's that gif where he's out in the desert and he's like fake stroking it, and he's got that like movement where it's like.
Right. You had to see it.
Yeah.
Just amazing. So that's Iggy, and then so he ends and he says he's really enjoyed the time he spent with us. But he's told he's got to get the fuck out of here because he's on a tight time thing. But I almost felt like we should have asked for an encore. And I would have normally. My normal reaction normally is. But at large festivals like this, you don't normally. And he had a gap between when he was done and when the Misfits took his stage. I don't know if he would have actually responded if we would have got the crowd to do it. But he almost seemed like he wanted to keep going. But we should have asked for an encore, but we didn't. And so the show ends, and it was just amazing. Now, I did not stay for the Misfits, but I made sure to walk past Social Distortion so I could say I at least heard them. And yes, some people are going to say, why didn't you stay for the Misfits? And as much as I would like to have caught them, Iggy was my main attraction. And we got out of there in record time because there were people leaving, but nothing like I'm sure at the end of the festival. And I was exhausted from driving 2 days, sitting in the sun, eating a hibachi burrito. I had to go, but it was awesome. It was awesome.
So after you got out of there, you go back to the hotel. When did you get back on the road, and where'd you go?
Okay, so the next day we decide we're gonna go to Mexico. Now that's a 3-hour drive, 3.5 hours. From the place we were at. So we first stopped at a place for coffee, and we had to go the first place was closed, even though it said it was open. Luckily, that's true. There was a donut shop next to it, so we bought several donuts. They were very good.
Were there a lot of cops there?
No, there wasn't. So then we head towards a different place to find and it was called Rad Cafe or Rad Coffee. You can do a quick Google search. Outside of Pomona. And that place had more merch than like anything. Matter of fact, most of the people getting delayed at the order stand was because they were getting merchandise. And so by the time we got up there, I was buying a bunch of stuff, T-shirts, mugs, and all this stuff. And then we bought our coffee. The coffee was very good, but she got something called the Wolf. For $10, you can get a 32-ounce ice brewed coffee with 4 shots of espresso, hazelnut, mocha, and something else. The thing was amazing. and you're wired for sound.
How many ounces?
32 ounces.
Holy fuck.
And you're wired for sound because it's got the coffee plus 4 shots of espresso. And they make their coffee really fast. So the longest thing that takes you to get out of there is the merchandise.
So how far back did that set you on your travel? Because you must have been
Not
pissing every...
I didn't drink that. I drank coffee. She got the wolf. And I'd
so
had a taste.
Did you
it was
give her?
awesome.
Did you give her piss jugs for the ride? Or?
No, but we stopped at a record store and I actually bought a record player because I wanted to get an upgraded record player. So then we bought several postcards.
So you must have bought 45s at the punk gig then.
No, we didn't. We only got a few things at the punk show. And to crawl through all of the places that had 45s, no, we didn't do that. So and then we would have to carry it all and all that. So we bought a bunch of postcards, and sadly, Mongoose, we did not mail you one, but we mailed some other people some.
I'm offended. Say it's because you didn't remember my address.
Well, I mean, it was partly that, but we had
because the bunker,
we bought,
it's hard to find.
The bunker is hard to find, but we bought a gaggle of them, and then we had to decide at a different stop who we're going to mail them to. So anyways, then we go to Mexico. Okay, so here's what happens. We go to Mexico, and we get flagged on the inbound to Mexico. And probably because I looked at the guy weird. I was going through and I didn't know what direction. I didn't know what direction to go. And I look at the Mexican Border Patrol and I kind of like reach for my passport because I didn't know what to do.
So you said inbound to Mexico?
Inbound to Mexico, outbound U.S. So I look at the guy and I don't know what to do. And maybe my confused look, he flags us. So the thing is, he just asks us if I speak Spanish. I'm like, no. He's like, little? Like, no, English. So I say several times, like, a little bit? No. He probably thought I was an idiot for going. So then he looks in the back, looks at my record player, puts it back, sends us through it. Like less than 3 minutes. All right, so we go. Then almost instantly.
He didn't make you pay him a bribe or something.
No. Almost instantly, we lose cell signal. I'm like, oh, crap. Do we not have like international? So luckily, my girlfriend's phone works. So we're like, well, we don't really have a plan. We just wanted to go down here to eat.
What carrier does she have?
Sprint. And I had one phone with Verizon and one phone with USL.
So Sprint works in Mexico.
Well, hold on. Technically, they all did. That'll be a little twist at the end here. So I'm like, what the hell? This is weird. So then we have to use her phone for map. And we found out that Mexicali has a Chinese history. Huh. So there's a lot of Chinese restaurants down there because there's been a lot of immigrants over the years. And they have fusion, Chinese-Mexican fusion. And one of the things I looked forward to was octopus taco, fried octopus taco. But the place that had that was closed on Sundays.
They didn't have hibachi
No, they did not. So then...
Did you ask?
No. The place is closed. So we find some other random Chinese place. Now we're like almost flying blind here. Luckily, I chose to drive towards where civilization looked like it was. So we park in a spot that looks like it's probably parking. She thought we were parking in a no parking spot. But I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that means no trucks because it was a truck. I'm like, I hope that means no trucks, not no parking. So we park. We go in. We wait a long time. And they're asking us how many, but in, Spanish, so I'm just like assuming they're asking how many people, so I'm like dos, and so then she writes it down, and I could tell I was inferring based on what she was doing with other people. So we finally get seated, and like we're the only.
Did you mutter mierda?
We're the only people that are not any Spanish. So there were other people that looked like they were probably American, but they could speak more Spanish than we could. So we had to like fudge our way through this whole experience. And at the end of dinner, he asked for what I assumed was a tip. And I'm like, how do you, like 15 is like, you
should have just taught him some English.
So, yeah. Well, anyways, so he actually, they gave us someone that had some more English. I wonder if they conned us. I don't know if you tip in Mexico. I know some foreign countries, they don't really tip. But I'm like, whatever.
Aren't you supposed to haggle?
Not with dinner, I don't think. So, of course, everything's in pesos. I don't know how much anything costs.
So they're like 10 pesos.
So I just give him
Cinco pesos.
I just gave him my card and said 15, and then he figured out it was percent. He took out his phone and did the math. So we pay, then we get in the car and we like leave. Okay, so now we get on a long, long line to the American border. And I'm like, wait a minute.
So hold on. How long were you in Mexico?
Just for dinner. It's just for dinner. So we went down there just for dinner. And
just
maybe we were hoping to find some little spot that we could like, but we couldn't. We were in residential areas with like a Chinese restaurant. So we're like, we're just going to get out here. We can't, we got one phone working. We can't risk it. So we ill-prepared Mexican trip. So we go and we get in this long line, but the road said there was 2 lanes to the left. So I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, what about the other side? It looks like people are turning right faster. So I decide to take the risk and I get out of line and I go into the other lane. And I did confirm that if I would have gone all the way down, did a U-turn, I could have turned right faster. But I did also find out there were 2 left turn lanes. But for some reason, everyone's in the first one. So we get into the second one and we get in the line. So now we're in the border. And we come up to a person that left their booth for a long period of time and then comes back randomly. And we get up to her. And then she gets our stuff, our passports. And then she's asking like weird things like, where are you going? I'm like, home, America. Like, where? I'm like right now? I mean, I guess New Mexico, we're going to Roswell. But we live in America. I'm like...
Yeah, do you see my passport? It says I'm a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to figure out, like...
How dare you go home?
Like, I'm trying to figure out, like... So then she's like, ask us what we did for a living. Now, when you get a passport, you have to tell them what you did. So I'm like, are they trying to figure out if we're, like, matching up to what we said? Now, you can obviously have a passport that's several years old, so you might have changed. But I'm like, I told, what my thing, she told her thing. And she's like, what'd you go down here for? We went to eat. And you came all the way from California. I'm like, what do you mean all the way? First of all, we don't live in California. We drove to California for a festival, and it's like 3 hours away. Like, we're already like hundreds of miles away from my home. She's asking all these things like it's suspicious. I'm like, so yeah, we did just come down here to eat. Maybe that sounds stupid, but that's what we did.
You should have slipped her 10 pesos.
So I don't think she...
So she just want to bribe you.
So then she said, roll down your back window. So I rolled down the back window and she could see, like, we had, like, random shit, like, all of our merch.
Hibachi burrito wrappers.
We had fat to-go containers. What else? I don't know. She couldn't see the record. It was in the back, record player. Just random shit, right? So she's like, here, take this. She pushed a cone on our thing. And she's like, go get over there.
A cone?
A cone. That means they're like getting inspected. And she put something on a windshield. So I'm like, what the hell? Okay, so this person thinks like it's all suspicious. So we go through an X-ray. You have to drive through an X-ray. And I hesitated. I'm like, I'm not driving through that. Like, no one was around though. So I couldn't be like, I don't want to drive through the X-ray. You go do it. So we had to drive through the X-ray thing, and then no one told us that there was a way that we could keep going to leave. I'm like, do I just go, or do I go around this stupid circle? So I went through the circle. Then no one told us that we had to park in a different spot. So I get out of my car and like, no, get in your car, and then you have to come into this section. I'm like, why doesn't someone tell us where we're supposed to park? So we sat there forever, and then finally, after they inspected us, they found in our cooler we had apples and oranges and grapes and cheese, and apparently apples and oranges are some of the things that you cannot bring through. So even though they came from America, they said it doesn't matter the country of origin, you can't bring them back. So it's best to eat them or throw them away. So they took those. But the grapes were still there. I'm like, okay. And yes, we were totally ill-prepared. You can blame us all you want. But then it looked like the guard kind of thought that the person that sent us to them was kind of an idiot. Like our car totally looked like we were just on this random, I had like nuts. I had a bin full of nuts. And like we were just like... So it was like a waste of resources, but we were there. We got delayed. So that's what happened on that day.
So, I mean, now just to go find a hole in the border and just cross.
Yes. And then come back.
Because there's thousands of people just walking over every day.
If you do just walk across the border and you have your passport, is that fine? I don't know. Is that illegal or illegal?
I'm pretty sure most of the people crossing the border today don't have passports.
No, I get that. But if I got caught randomly crossing a section and I have my passport, am I legal or not? I don't know.
Well, from what I've
crossing.
heard, if the Border Patrol tries to stop you, there's federal troops that try to stop the Border Patrol and just let you through. So,
is that true?
At any rate, yes. I'm exaggerating. Anyway,
so we continued on our way from there to Roswell, and then that's where it got good. So now we've probably spent way too much time talking about other stuff, but we got to Roswell. And my next set of collection, there was a place on Main Drag that had a sign called Abduction Jerky, and it had an alien. This is Roswell, New Mexico.
So describe the Main Drag. I mean, are we talking about a dirt road next to a military installation?
No, it's a 4-lane, two lanes each way thoroughfare. I actually wish it was more walkable. It's a really big. Is it actually Main Street? I don't know, but that's the main drag through town of Roswell. It's very long.
So are there big buildings, or is it kind of 1950s-ish? Because I got this picture in my head, like 50s-ish kind of like city thoroughfare. It's
a lot of lower side. It's 2 stories. But then there's a few big ones, but no skyscrapers. And we found a place with Abduction Jerky on the window, and it had an alien zapping a cow, like a cattle mutilation, making jerky, basically. Nice. So we had to go in there because we took the UFO. So it's strongly recommended you take the UFO tour in Roswell. And that is the Roswell UFO tour. It's really, really interesting. And he just takes you through what we know. And just by following what we know, you see how stupid the government story is about the weather balloon, because it's ridiculous. If you didn't already think it was ridiculous, it's ridiculous.
So let me ask you. I mean, did you do research before you got there?
Not other than my normal UFO, delving.
Because I will just give a pro tip to all the listeners. If you're ever going somewhere and you're going to take a tour, these tour guides give the same tour every day, and the majority, 99% of the people that they give tours to are learning just basic 101. And so they go through the same type of script every day. If you're the 1% that knows more or has a knowledge base that's above average, you're going to make the tour guide's day, and you're going to have a much better time.
Yeah, well, I asked him because we came for an earlier tour, and we were the only ones on that tour, so he asked us if we could come back. And so we said sure, because it'd be better to get with a bigger crowd. So we came back for the second one. And I asked if anything had been found, and he talked about that. So I'll get to that in a second. But at the Abduction Jerky place, I can't remember what the building's called, what the store is called. I got several books. So this place was stocked with books. Now, the basic ones are the conspiracy book and the occult book. And the reason I got these it was a really cool overview of just a short history on the conspiracies for the conspiracy book and the occult for the occult book. It goes through different conspiracy organizations, Masons, Illuminati, etc. And it's just, I got it because it's a good overview for people that aren't familiar with these things. And the occult, same thing, like alchemy, the magic of the 1900s, Aleister Crowley, etc. Then I got the Illuminati book because the guy specifically said it's the best book on the Illuminati he's ever read. And I was just like so intrigued by that because I'm like, really? I was almost surprised that he would say that. So I decided to get it. Don't know anything about it. The Secret Society That Hijacked the World, I'll be looking at that soon. At the next one I got was Jim Mars. So I actually knew about him, random YouTube video. He's passed away. I can't remember what year. But this is population control, how corporate owners are killing us. And it talks about, from bad food, bad water, bad drugs, bad air. He also predicted the pandemic before the pandemic happened. So check out Jim Mars with 2 R's. You can find him on YouTube as well, his older interviews. But this book I've heard about. I actually heard about it before this, and I decided to get it there because I wanted to support the local business, and it was cool. At the Roswell UFO Museum is where I bought Crash at Corona. This is the book. I did not know that Stanton Friedman, and this shows how bad I am at UFO research, because I'm kind of like a dabbler in this stuff. I don't go deep into it. Stanton Friedman actually tracked down the major that was the Roswell-based guy that originally reported the UFO before then taking the pictures with the quote-unquote weather balloon photo. So he's tracked him down in the 70s, and then this book came from that. So if it wouldn't have been for this, I didn't realize that Roswell would never have blown up as big as it did, because it was originally reported that a UFO had crashed and was in the possession of the Army. That was originally it. So I thought that alone sparked all the conspiracies. But because almost within a day or two, they immediately said it was just a weather balloon, this, that, the other thing. They got the rancher to basically say, no, it was just the weather balloon. They got him to reverse the story. apparently the story died pretty quick. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
and that was just damage control, of course.
Yeah. I didn't know that it was that covered up. And so this book, written in, I think it was published originally in 70. Let's see here. Well, I don't know the original copyright of it. But yeah, he tracked him down in 1978. I don't know when the book came out. So so that was interesting. Of course, the Roswell, there were always there was the Aztec crash that happened after Roswell. And did you know that I just found out, and I don't know if you'd heard about this, that there was actually a UFO crash at Trinity, 1945, that only recently has been coming into the forefront.
Trinity.
Yeah, the Trinity test site. So it's called the Trinity UFO crash. So look that up. I just found out about before we left for our trip that within the last couple of years it's been coming to making news now. So that means that predates Roswell and the Aztec crash, which everyone thought were the start of the UFO craze. And I've got my own theories on what's going on with the UFOs and whether they're ultra-terrestrials or whatever. But anyways, I asked him if there was material found recently, because now that people are getting to the site, are people just finding random things? And he said, yes, material was found. There's going to be a show on Netflix. And it's either going to be the first episode, which is coming out in the next week or two, or it's going to be later in the season. It's not going to be a whole episode dedicated to it, but they're going to talk about this. But meanwhile, there's this article, Metal Fragments Found at 1947 Crash Site, and that is the RDR News. And they analyze it, like I said, at the first half of the show. And it's aluminum, silicone, what else? There's some other. It's similar to other magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, chromium, nickel, and cobalt, and it's similar to other modern things that are used for structural aluminum. However, it's usually not. As far as this article, it almost makes it seem like it's never used in sheets. So this is a sheet, and it does look like it was explosively. Like there's explosive marks, like it was blasted out. So I don't know if this is the same material, because he made it sound like it was more recent. This is from June of 2023. He made it seem like it was found within the last couple of months. So I don't know if a new fragment's been found, but he did say that after this whole incident blew over, the rancher and his son would be on the land. And the son, if you know anything, gave interviews several times throughout the years. He recently passed. I don't know what year, but he passed away. But he talked about how after the incident, he would be out in the land with his father, and he would see a glint in the sun, and he would say, "Hey, Dad, is that part of the thing that crashed?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's best if we don't talk about that. I promised the Air Force I wouldn't say anything, or Army or whatever it was at the time." So I was always wondering, like, no matter how many people they put out in the field, because supposedly they had the people scour the land. To find a debris field that large in every single piece, could you really do it, especially when it landed and crashed into the soil? And so supposedly there's been fragments found. So we'll find out what comes of that.
So I'm wondering, when you were out there and you're talking to the tour guide and just the various things you did, the research you did, the things you found out, did the Brookings report from 1960, 1961 ever come up in discussion? And so the Brookings report was basically the report that the Brookings Institution was engaged to help collaborate with NASA on to determine the implications of the discovery of extraterrestrial life. And it's often cited for why the government suppresses any information about extraterrestrial life, because it has, kind of correlations with like World of Worlds and Orwell and, the whole, we know what happened when that whole thing, the radio show. But what's interesting to me now is that, and for several years, aliens have become, the phenomena has been becoming more to the forefront. To where now it's almost to the point to where like the government's, almost like, admitting, and I mean, there's
Kinda.
the weather balloons and stuff like that, and it's like there's all this shit happening lately. It's like I'm just wondering if the government stance that that has always been attributed to the Brookings Report is like we can't let the public know about this stuff. It's almost like the stance is changing.
Kinda, except that they reaffirmed the weather balloon theory within the last year, he said. They just stated again that it was a weather balloon.
About the Roswell thing?
Yes. The funny thing about a weather balloon, there's so many inconsistencies with the story. But even if you accept that it was, all of that weather balloon material could have been fit in one pickup truck. This thing was a massive debris field. But here's what's funny. If you go by the plain language, and the tour guide specifically said that people, the skeptics always point to how ufologists ignore the plain language of events, okay? What people say and things that are written down, right? But if you go to look at their theory, they're ignoring the plain language. Did you know that the Project Mogul, first of all, it wasn't top secret. There was a top secret purpose behind the project, but it was grad students at, where's the place that the wine is from? Alamogordo. They were doing the weather balloon experiments, and the balloon that was supposedly released that would have crashed did not have the radar target, which was the balsa wood and foil. And then in addition, I believe, and I could be misremembering, but I believe because of weather, they didn't even launch that day. Okay, but even if they had, it didn't. The mission that was launched did not have a target. So what they say is, well, it had the target. They just didn't write it down. They forgot. So they're ignoring the documentation of the people, and also the dummies. They say that the alien figures were the crash test dummies. So I asked him about that at the end because he didn't bring that up. And he's like, yes, exactly. That was an experiment that was done in 1955 or something. So first of all, the experiment with the dummies wasn't 1947. And the guy that they say time-traveling misremembering. So it's like time-traveling memories. You saw something in 55 and thought it was 47. He didn't even live there at the time of the crash test dummy experiment. So they ignore all of that, and they just tell you this is what it was. Oh yeah, you just saw those, and it's like it's gaslighting it to the utmost extreme. But
it's just another example of that. I mean, we've been gaslit about most recently 9/11. We've been gaslit about the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just on par with that.
Right. Now, what I like about the UFO tour, even though I believe it was something totally wacko. Don't know what it is. What's good about it is he just states the information. So he doesn't say what it is. Like, for instance, some people think it was a military experiment. Sure, it could have been. I don't know. And maybe the bodies weren't aliens. Maybe not. But something was there. Something was bigger than a weather balloon. And also, you don't confuse a weather balloon.
Yeah, well, I'm interested. So your comment about a very big debris field. So, I mean, how big are weather balloons? I mean, they're not tiny, but they're not giant, are they?
No.
I mean, and when something like a weather balloon crashes, the debris field is going to be a pretty consolidated space. It's going to hit the ground. I mean, what's the likelihood a weather balloon is going to break up in the atmosphere and distribute over a large area, right? So how big was the debris field at Roswell?
I mean, well, it was huge. You've got what's weird is there was actually like a spot, and I don't have the numbers. There was a spot of shit that was dropped that was separate from where it actually crashed. So it's almost like it's like stuff's falling off of it, and then the crash. And some of the pictures that are in the museum are interesting, the depictions and stuff like that. So you're talking like it was spread all over, and it was I can't remember how wide he said it. I'm making this up, 20 yards or something wide, and then just like and a weather balloon doesn't do that obviously. And even if with the radar target, you're talking about some tinfoil and balsa wood that's gonna like not expand into like this kind of huge thing. He drove a part of it in his pickup truck to the sheriff's. I didn't know this either. He originally drove it into town to the sheriff and said, whoever dumped, he's paraphrasing, we don't know the exact quote, whoever dumped this in my field better come and clean it up, because he had goats, and they're going to be in the shit that's sitting in the field. He doesn't want it all there, right? And so the sheriff called the military base. And that's how that got involved. And the guy was it was the 4th of July vacation. So he's sitting there relaxing. They drove like multiple cars. He actually drove his, I believe it was a Buick, along with all the other cars. So he takes his personal car to this like rancher's like area, and he's like driving. Like, how would you even, he says he doesn't go more than 10 miles in his Jeep. The tour guide has taken his Jeep out to this thing, and he doesn't go more than 10 miles an hour. How are you going to, so this guy's like, it took like a while to get there, and then they come through. Anyways, all of the inconsistencies are crazy. Just read up on this stuff and just follow the facts. Don't read into, like, don't make the jumps to conclusion if you don't want to. You know, me personally, I've got my own ideas, but
Right.
if you want to be a skeptic, follow the facts, and they don't line up to what the government says.
Well, and that's the big red flag is like whenever you're a skeptic about things, like just look at the evidence and, you know, it doesn't add up half the time. And so you got to wonder, like, why is that? I mean, it's just a huge red flag.
Right.
But anyway, how close did you come to the military base? I
Oh,
mean,
we drove through it. It's not a military base anymore. So it's been repurposed. It's actually really, for a history buff, you would love the fact he's very into the history part of it, the tour guide. So we were driving over spots that there were other buildings that aren't there anymore. Some of the buildings still are there. The original gate, there's parts of it there. Someone actually hit it recently, so there's some of the bricks are knocked off. Some of the hangars now that's repurposed for our airport. You're talking about Eric. Did you know? I didn't know this. Roswell was the first strategic air command that was the first atomic bomber group after World War II. Huh. So they were the ones that dropped the bomb on the Bikini Atoll. And did you know that they missed the target by a decent distance? Really? Not insanely. No one, that didn't come out for years. And when they came back, they caught hell. But they, they of course brushed it all over. But they were the bomber group that if there was a issue that needed to drop atomic bombs, they were the ones responding. Also a reason why some theorists think that's why the UFOs were around.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Because like generally they say UFO activity increases in moments of wartime in like very active war zones.
Yeah, military in general, but atomics especially. I found randomly by looking at a map, there was a Nike missile site that when I looked online, it looks like a bunch of people go there and do shooting. They just take their guns out there and shoot. So it's an old Nike missile site, which is an anti-aircraft. But when I brought that up to the tour guide, he said he doesn't believe Nikes were ever deployed there. But it is a Nike site. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a Nike site. And then down from that is an Atlas F missile silo that the pictures online look like a really nice, someone has turned it into a thing. And what he says is it's an Airbnb. And for $500 a night or something, you can stay in a missile silo outside of Roswell.
Yeah, you can Google the old silos that have been converted into and like they're really
Some of them
cool.
look really nice. Yeah.
But did you know, like, fun fact, SpongeBob SquarePants Bikini Bottom is the idea is the mutant sea life underneath Bikini Atoll.
Yes, that's awesome. That is amazing, actually. So yes, there's all the stuff that I didn't know. Now this is of all the thing, Iggy Pop and Roswell were the two highlights of this trip. I could live in Roswell. That place is awesome. We saw a guy, Richard, he plays guitar. He roams the streets. Check him out. Make sure you give him a good tip.
Not Little Richard.
No, not Little Richard. But check him out and give him a good tip if you see him playing. He says he's met everyone. He's met people from every continent other than Antarctica.
Didn't you say there was some woman stalking him?
There was a woman stalking him, recording him, which is very weird and tacky. But the thing is there's a UFO festival. This year, it is July 5th through the 7th. So I didn't know that they have I should have known that they have a festival every year around the time of the Roswell crash. So I'm going to have to make a plan for next year maybe to get down there. But no, this is amazing. After that, we ended up going to Memphis, great place. How it compares to Nashville, it's tough to say. There's a lot more going on in Nashville from what I can tell. I was only there one day in Memphis, but it seemed more authentic in Memphis. But you can find the authentic stuff in Nashville. You have to just know where to go.
Yeah, it's getting more difficult because, last time I was in Nashville, I was with you. We did that road trip, what was that,
2021 maybe?
Almost 3 years ago, yeah. But, just it's so fast becoming commercialized. I mean, now On weekends, you have lines and can barely get in any of the bars on Broadway. And it's so it was crowded when we were there, but it's even worse now.
Yeah.
And
we were at the
it's getting rowdy.
pandemic.
It's getting, I don't know. It's just like the locals in Nashville say. It's like it's not like it used to be, and it's just too commercial.
Yeah. Well, the guy we found some random street. So they were not street musicians technically. They were playing for the place that they were in front of, but they were on the street. We walked past them the first time. They were kind of setting up. We walked past them the second time. We went to the end of Beale Street and then came back. So Beale, I guess, is like one of the main drags. I'm sure there's other places. So we came back, and then the bass player said, "You want to hear a song?" So I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure, why not?" I didn't think they were really going to play yet. It was not night or anything yet. It was still like 5 o'clock or something. So they started playing, but the drummer was like, "Do you play guitar? You look like you're a guitar player." I'm like, "Well, I do play guitar, but yeah, I'm not going to play." He's like, "Our guitar player didn't show up." So I'm like, "Well, you know." And then we told him we're from Wisconsin.
That was your chance, Muskrat.
So we told him we're from Wisconsin. Here goes the cheese story. So, you know, he's kind of making, talk with us. And he's like, Wisconsin. And he goes, I almost forgot. This is about to start to play. You're from Wisconsin. Did you bring us any milk or cheese? I'm like, no, actually, I've got cheese, but it's in the car. So we're not going to bring that now. So then they played like sitting on the dock of the bay and something else. And what's awesome is they were good musicians, drummer and bass. So probably the first time I've ever heard just a drummer bass player play a song. And then what was cool is the drummer was singing mostly. And then every once in a while on sitting on the dock of the bay, the bass player would chime in with a harmony that was spot on in key with the drummer. Like amazing. And he was just randomly, he didn't have a mic. The drummer had a mic. The bass player didn't. He would just speak up every once in a while. It was totally in key, totally perfect. And I gave him, I tipped him, and then we went on our way. And he's like, "You just called me Wisconsin." Yep. Take care of Wisconsin.
Well, I've been to Nashville several times, and there's one time I went down. We went down there, and that particular trip. I mean, we didn't just go to Nashville, but we made a stop at God, why am I spacing on the name of it? But it's the town that Loretta Lynn owns. So she's got property there, and she bought the town years ago. But people there are very friendly. It's a very small town, a lot of shops and things like that. But talking to people down there, and I think one of the people we talked to was like her granddaughter because she like was working the shop. But they would always, when they find out you're from Wisconsin, they would ask if you have cheese curds. So the next time we went down there, we brought cheese curds with.
Wow.
And then, of course, that time nobody asked about cheese curds, so we just ate them ourselves. But, yeah, cheese curds in Wisconsin go hand in hand.
Yeah, and people that haven't had cheese curds, oh, my gosh, they love them.
They make your teeth squeak. The good
the
cheese
good ones,
curds, yeah.
They'll squeak.
That's how you know they're fresh.
All right, well, we just talked about road trips, UFOs, and what else did we talk about? Oh, yeah, punk rock. Wow, that was a spread.
Well, life philosophy and everything in between.
That is right.
Quarter of the United States to the next, and Mexico.
All right, any last thoughts as we wrap up the June episode?
Yeah, so as you've learned, folks, if you're going to Mexico or coming back, cross the border with a coyote. Don't take the main entrance.
That's right. No, actually.
Follow the migrants.
All right. Everyone down there was friendly, and they were selling peppers. We should have picked up some peppers, but I didn't know if they get confiscated. Remember, this is June 14th, 2024. Packets and Bolts. Email the show, packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Remember to keep packing those bolts. Until next time, see ya.
Real goat.